Hey y'all, welcome back. It sure is a hot one here in Tennessee today. It's been raining cats and kittens, and now the sun's trying to pop out, and it is one humid SOB out here. Got out here early this morning, couldn't do nothing filming wise, so I picked up just a little bit, and I went ahead and gathered up some of the parts and pieces that I've had that I bought in the past, and we're gonna put it on Lady Liberty on that big block. So here's all the parts and pieces that we got. No, that ain't one of them. But I got the sniper. Went ahead and got the coil and all the ignition stuff. Got the Hyperspark distributor. All this came with the Holly kit. Still don't know what I'm going to use or not going to use, because I'm using an intake pump. I'm using the seating unit for this pump. I went ahead and picked up a new fuel tank, and I got one for a fuel injected Chevrolet truck so it can have the baffle and stuff already in it. Picked up this separately for a return. And it goes with that. Plug wires for the distributor, of course, and all this wiring that's hanging down that I honestly don't remember what does what. But I found all my paperwork over here, and I've been, glancing through it, trying to figure some of it out, or, get my brain to thinking again. I really don't know if I want to start on the fuel system or go ahead and put the stuff under the hood. I think I'm gonna go ahead and put the fuel tank and stuff in. That way if I mess a strap up, I can get them on order. Or a rubber hose, that sort of stuff. And I'm not gonna bore y'all through all that. Well, I got the fuel tank out. That's a good thing. But I'm gonna have to get, new filler neck vent hose, because this looks like it's been in there before the truck was built. And I don't know what all this is. It kind of looks like what the interior would look like when you go to clean one up. It's been setting up for years and years. So I'm glad I opted to get a new fuel tank. It was just a matter of time this one will start leaking, if it ain't already started leaking. I don't really see any pinholes in it as of yet, but I'm sure it wasn't far from it. So my next order of business, I reckon I'm gonna start building my fuel pump and getting all that stuff ready to go on my new tank. Go ahead and order up some fuel hose and vent line. See what Rock Auto has there. See where it's cheaper. Rock Auto, if you ain't careful, they want to ship them from multiple warehouses. You gotta watch that stuff. I guess that's tar paper. I did take the brackets off. They're laying over on the floor. I gotta clean them up. Reuse them. They look pretty good. I'll show you some fine wiring I found in here. So you see this wire dangling right now. That's the ground wire that they had twisted to the gas tank. Then they twisted it to the original ground. And I mean, yeah, that works. And I'm assuming this one goes to the fuel sender, because it did work, but I'm guessing they just had that shoved in a butt connector, the way everything else was done on this truck. We're waiting on some parts for the fuel tank over there, so I guess we'll go ahead and lay out how we're gonna do the wiring. Of course, we got a Hyperspark we got to throw in it, you know, that sort of stuff. So really don't know which way I want to get started. I guess I'll just rip the carburetor off and go from there. And we'll go all out with the power tools if possible. Because they done made me super lazy. Guess I better disconnect that gas line first, because we all know that's gonna be stuck on there. Well, made a liar out of me. That's surprising. Don't want to lose my cotter pin. So I done lost like 15 of them. What? Oh, and it ain't even steel, so I can't go stick it with a magnet. Oh man, that's one good thing about having steel stuff. You drop it, you fish a magnet. Not with aluminium. Antifreeze still down in the intake where I swapped out my temperature sensor for my cluster. So while I'm on this subject, the instrument cluster on the gauge, you could wire it or check the wiring, everything seemed fine, but as soon as you crank the truck, within a matter of seconds, it would peg full hot. This is the one out of the original engine. All right. So when I put this engine in, I had another one that was new that I put in here, had it laying around, and I put a new circuit board on the back of the cluster because the resistor on the thermostat read fine too. I assume that's what the problem was originally, but after I seen the printed circuit on the back of it, I knew it was trash. Then I kept having the same issues. It just didn't work right. So it dawned on me. I ohmed out the other one, which is, I forget the ranges, but this is the smaller ohm that reads this gauge cluster, whatever that is. I forget exactly how it works. I done slept since then. So if you're running into issues, always check this and make sure you got the right sender for your particular setup. Because I chased my tail until I figured it out. Brain fart one day and leave it to me. Well, I'm gonna finish tearing this apart, and it really ain't no fun in watching me do that. When I get it stripped apart and started going back together, we'll check back in. Well, I immediately had to come back and get the camera going again. And now I wished I would have waited 30 more seconds, because as soon as I pop this rotor, you see what's on my mind. As soon as I pop this coil and cap off, the rotor decided to come with it. So apparently I never screwed this down, and I honestly don't know how the damn thing was running, but it all seems to be, you know, advancing and stuff. So we had like a dual advanced system or something. Boy, I mean, you can't make this shit up. That was literally sitting on there just like this. And as soon as I popped that cap off, it tried to come off with it. Leave it to me. So now I'm gonna do, no I'm not, because I got stretched too far. But I just wanted to let you know, apparently GMs will run with the rotor not fastened down. So I just had to go to the hardware store to pick me up some machine screws, because I lost my screws to my cap for my distributor. So I wanted to break in this moment to show y'all how I believe this goes, but I haven't read the instructions. I mean, I have, but it's been a while. But the distributor's down in there, and you know, this thing rotates. Well, it comes with this clear cap. that you want to slide over, and you want to adjust the base until everything sits down on there correctly. See how that sits down on there? It contains the rotor, and it contains 2 little pins over here with this clear cap. So once that's locked in right there, you want to go ahead and tighten down your base. And of course, I got the craziest 12-point design ever without a distributor wrench. I've never owned one, but it is on my list of things to get the next time I go to Harbor Freight, which they're probably out of at the time, knowing my luck. But you get the gist of things, and hopefully it'll fire off whenever we get to that point. I'm back with some updates, and by that I mean I got some stuff accomplished. So we got the sniper installed, got the distributor installed, wired up, coils hanging from the firewall. I tried to get all the wiring over here. Here's our box. Got it somewhat loomed going around, and of course it's going to shoot back this way straight to the battery like the instruction says. We got these swapped out because I wanted to put this coolant sensor in this, and I know that, and in the back it's going to read a little different, so that's going to be the truck gauge or cluster gauge. An issue I did come across was the throttle bracket. This is one that I had laying around. I don't really care for it. It goes to the inside. The one that came off of it, you know, your typical brackets like this, it won't fit because of, you know, the side plate here is too far out. So we're gonna have to come up with something to get that mounted up. And my cousin stopped by, and he's got the same system. Just so happens he made little brackets to come out this way that looked like it would be perfect. So we may end up going that route. We'll just have to fab something up quick. Still got to get me an O2 bung so I can get it welded into the exhaust down there. Then we're gonna start working on the, you know, the fuel tank. That might be, I don't know, I'm kind of dreading it, but then again, it ain't gonna be all that difficult, really. Unlike most people that would have spent the extra, you know, few bucks to get a new one of these too, I opted to spend quite a bit of time getting it off that old trash one back there, you know, the save on it. I mean, it don't look rusted out, but I mean, I guess I could have bought a new one. Saved a little bit of time, but I didn't. Oh well. That's where we're at right now. And really, it ain't nothing entertaining to watch. So I'm gonna dive back in it, try to get a little bit more stuff accomplished, and I'll give you some more updates as I get them. Well, here we're gonna get ready and build our fuel tank. And I'm gonna use mostly stock parts for the simple reason of, if you're ever out on a trip and something breaks down, I don't know about you, but I don't have a Holly store close to me to replace fuel pumps. So I'm going with stock stuff. And what I mean by that, this is a tank for a fuel injected TBI 87 C10. Has the baffle in it. That's necessity for fuel injection. You need a baffle to keep that fuel pump, you know, fed, like me. Second thing is you gotta have a sending unit for the fuel pump, right? So same situation. 87 C10. In the heart is your fuel pump. No, this ain't for an 87 C10. Those are a low pressure fuel systems. I think about 13 to 15 pounds of pressure. This is out of like a 96, 99 Vortec 350 Chevrolet. Y'all get the drift. This is a Delphi pump. Got it from Rock Auto. They're not very expensive neither, to be honest, through Rock Auto, that is. So that's what we're going to be using. The next order of business is you got to have a steric tape measure, because we're going to be doing some measuring, and it might not be right, but it's going to be precise. So the first thing I'm going to be doing is measuring the depth here at about 10.5, just to make sure stuff seems like it's going to be G-hung. And from here to here, it's about 10, and by the time you add a sock, about a 1/2 inch. So I say that's good. So let's see how we're going to build this. You gotta have your fuel pump first, and it comes with all this insulators and clamps and O-rings and tubes, you know, all that good stuff. And this came with the gas tank, so we got duplicates, which is a good thing, because you might need some spares. Might not necessarily be on this project, but hey, future projects, you got it. Roll up the old procrastinating chair. Clean me out a small spot. Couple of different O-rings to seal it off to the tank. Clamps, this doodad, and trash goes in the trash. So here's the Delphi packaging, and the part number I'm using is one of those. Y'all take it for what it's worth. I don't know which one's which, but it's made in China, so that's good. Take our caps off, and y'all hang on to them things. You can cap anything off just about with those suckers. So we got that on there. We need to slip this hose over it. Now, if I can remember how this clocks, where's my sock at? I don't know if I'm doing it right. Now we got us a high pressure fuel system. They didn't break the bank. Of course, we'll go, and I'm pretty sure, I mean, obviously that's the ground wire, but I'm thinking the gray one is, you know, supposed to be red, and the purple is the sending unit. And we'll double check all that before we put it in there, just to make sure. Clip our wires, and see, I mean, even the connector for the TBI connects to the high pressure. See how easy that was? Just a snip, clip, and play. Now I'm gonna hit some WD-40 down in there. And WD-40, you know, it's expensive now, so I went and done the right thing, bought one of these and a gallon of it, and so far it's been pretty darn useful and cheaper. Uh-oh. See, I do things so y'all know what not to do. But I got it. And the other thing about the negative on the WD-40 thing is it will get everywhere, including your floor. So don't wear Crocs around it, or you're gonna bust your ass. That's just the way it is. And she ain't going nowhere. But there is one thing you need to check before you do all that. Obviously that's going to be the feed. One of these is return, and this is probably the vent. How do I know that? I don't. So I'm gonna have to Google that right quick on the World Wide Web just to make sure. Because once again, I forgot. But it's obvious the biggest one's gonna be the feed. The smallest one is more than likely gonna be the vent. And the middle size is gonna be, you know, the return. Well, I'm back with updates. I mean, I'm turning into a grease monkey, but I need to go wash up. Looking like a true mechanic now, ain't I? I fought that gas tank, fuel lines. We got all the hoses and stuff ran up here, and we're getting ready to snip, attach. Then I guess we'll wire up the plug wires, put some fuel in it, see if we got any leaks, and see if it'll crank. Let me go wash up. Well, I went and scrubbed with lava soap, and I mean, it peeled the layer of skin off like it's supposed to. By the way, it ain't for sensitive skin, folks, all right? But, you know, I got sidetracked working on other stuff, so honestly, I just need to update this firmware and stuff on the system, and it's a go. So we got the procrastinating chair. And let's see about getting this thing fired up. So I pulled the SD card out of the touch screen, so that's what that is. We'll go ahead and let this thing boot up, and I'll just kick back and enjoy 5 minutes, because that's how long these Windows computers will take to boot. All right, so if you go to Holley.com support, you know, that sort of stuff, find the firmware that you need. So this is something new that I don't know, or I didn't know about, but apparently they got a thing. I know this thing is good at flash and carry on, but it's Sniper EFI SD card updater. So what that does, from what I think it does, is you download that software onto your laptop or computer, whatever your case is, and when you put in your SD card, it automatically updates everything for you. That way it's not, it gets complicated when you're trying to update firmware for your touchscreen and for your ECU. All that stuff's got to match. So I found that it supposedly does it all for you, from my understanding. And the reason I found that is because yesterday my cousin had some stuff he needed done, and I went to update everything, and well, I found this, and this updated it for me all in one whack. So I'm going to install SD card. I'm going to install SD card. There we go. And I wish that screen wouldn't do what it does, but we're going to hit update agent. Oh, let the Windows computer do what it's got to do. An unknown card. Don't know what that means. So first thing I'm going to do is go to that. Take all this, get it off my SD card, but I ain't gonna delete it yet. I'm just gonna move it to my desktop in case we need it. Then we'll delete off the SD card. So now we have a empty SD card. Maybe I did that right. Now let's hit this thing again. An unknown error occurred. Please support this. Don't know what that means. So we'll just go back to the website. Oh, maybe this is why. Turn on my Wi-Fi, dummy. Let's see what it does. Probably the same thing. No. So it's checking. Updates are available. Yes, I do. And I mean, this is where the fun is, sitting back and waiting, right? This device is not ready. Alright, don't know what that means. Well, I mean, it put the stuff on here. Your device is up to date. Why couldn't it have said that a while ago when it was finished? And let's go hit the ignition. Update. So we got to get this all update. Remove SD, reboot device. Okay. Uploading. Oh, it done the calibration. I did have this on the engine about 2 years ago. Now we're gonna cycle ignition and write a new thing, whatever it's called. All right, cycled it. So we're gonna go through the wizard again. We got that one. And these touch screens are so freaking sensitive. This is actually a 460, but it's a big 454 board. Idle speed, I don't know, shoot for 800, let's shoot for 850. Stock mild, it ain't got much of one. I ain't got no race. Quit jumping. No power adder. We're using the Hyperspark distributor. We're using the standard. I had a look and see what that was yesterday on my cousin's. Apparently Hyperspark has got one now. It's ready to run. It's got timing adjustments in it. Wide open throttle. I don't know. Clear. Cancel. Cancel. Please cycle ignition. Well, I just added fuel. Now I'm fixing to cycle the key, see if we got any leaks. Other than this big giant one that I spilled, you know, trying to put gas in a C10 flat fuel neck. So let's see if this sucker will do anything. I'm gonna turn the key back off. Back on. And I dropped it. Probably broke it. No, just made it dirty. Well, here goes the first try. Woo! It didn't like it. About burnt my eyebrows off. What did it do that for? Oh, wait something. Woo. It's running up there about 215 right now. We're gonna let her cool down. And I gotta figure out some of these timing deals. I could have the distributor off, although I thought, pretty sure I'd done that right. But even with it cranking slowly, you can tell that it's kind of advanced a little bit. So yeah, we'll let this sucker cool down some, and I'll go get in a procrastinating chair and cool down some. Figure out what I want to do next. Really need to get my throttle hooked up. That's what I'd like to do. But I mean, that's to be determined. Well, I'm back with updates, and as typical fashion, I had a distributor advanced about 15 degrees too much. So that makes sense. Or about lost my old eyebrows. And the poofing and firing and carrying on. So now we're gonna give it a go again and double check it again to see if it's actually reading what it's supposed to be reading. Which on this scenario, I think it's set at 15 degrees before top dead center. For idle. Well, I've got some more updates. I got this install done with some slight modifications that I'll show you for anybody that's interested in installing a Holly Sniper EFI system. But first off, on the exhaust, we got to fix a few leaks on that. I say few, I mean right there at the flange on each side. That gasket, nope. We're going to have to seal it up. That's problem number one. Problem number two is the starter. Starters done went so I'm going to have to see if that mini starter on that small block will fit on this big block. I don't know if it's got a straight pattern in this block here or not. Problem number three is I'm pretty sure I just bent another freaking push rod. on the other side. So I'm pretty sure I've got some bind issues going on right now. That's gonna set me back. With all that being said, on all this bolt-on kit, yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Fuel pump and all that stuff, it works out great. But let me show you what I was speaking of, as in issues. First off, this right here won't fit. Throttle and stuff sticking out way too far on this sniper. So my cousin that came over here the other day, he made him some little brackets. And I was like, hey, I just ran into this problem and I'm gonna do the same thing. So I took and found me some 1/8 by 1 and I welded me a nut on the bottom side so I could just zip them down in there. We got everything moved out. Problem number 2 on this setup is your throttle cable is supposed to go here. Well, when it's there, even without the spring, it's like it's a stiff bind. Then all of a sudden, well, let's just take this off and I'll show you. You're right here and you get, just barely try to crack the throttle, and by the time you get it broke over that center line, your 4 barrels are kicking in, then your foot's really tromping it, so you're spinning tire on this particular truck every time you're ready to take off. So I made this little bracket here to move this up. It was around 1.25 inches that I moved it up. The only other thing, and I don't know, I ain't looked at it yet, is about adjusting this darn back barrel rod. I don't know if you can or not. I need to look it up and see. But even now, with the way this is, as soon as you hit the throttle, you see how it's opening up. And I can notice it in the truck. Because you're usually, just a little bit like this right here. And as soon as you pat it just a little bit more, you can hear it, and that really picks up too much when you're just lightly on the throttle. And I think this needs to be adjusted. That's just my opinion. Don't go holding it to me. And the other one is my fuel gauge, my fuel pressure gauge. So let's delete that right quick. So I specifically bought an air breather base, or air breather and all, just for this kit because, provisions. Well, with that gauge over to the side, there's not enough room for this to even go on there. Yeah, I know it's my fault too. But I do like to have a way to read my fuel pressure. So I put that on there, and with this, it's just barely enough after I flip that upwards, as in the gauge, that I can lay it down in there. Well, kind of hard to do this with one hand, I suppose. It might help if I put it the right direction. There. Just like that. It's up just a little bit, but by the time I put my breather on and snug her down, it's just good to do until I can get a taller one of my spacers. And I think that's the only issues that I came across. I would have thought, and it might have now, but when I bought this, probably 2 years ago, because I was wanting to put it on this engine anyways when it was in my 68. I don't remember anything ever being recalled about not being able to use your throttle bracket or any kind of throttle extensions. None of that stuff. I don't remember none of it if it did. But everything else was pretty well straightforward. both on, done some wiring, and it works. I ain't had no issues out of it. That particular stuff. Well, I'm going to see what's going on with the valve train. We've almost reached 500 subscribers. We're halfway there. Appreciate each and every one of y'all.